Hi, Clarence. How are you doing? Hi, Clarence. How are you doing?
Hey,
Hey, Clarence. How are you doing?
yeah, sorry for the delay. Took me a while to figure out how everything worked.
Oh, no problem at all. Are you in Vancouver right now?
Yeah, yeah. Do you want to see?
Oh, wow.
I don't know
Awesome.
if you can see outside, but
Yeah. Whoa. Is
it's
is that the beach? Like,
yeah, it is. It's right next to Stanley Park.
oh, sick. Wow. Are you visiting some friends there? Or, yeah.
Yeah, you know Santina, right?
Oh,
Oh,
oh, oh, yeah, from McGill as well. Yeah.
yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
All right.
Awesome.
Yeah. Sorry, are we broadcasting right now? So,
Yeah, well, it's recording. Well, yeah, I made it private broadcasting, but yeah, it just to get the record feature out of it. So yeah, yeah, are you ready?
yeah,
Yeah, I don't want to waste more of your time.
yeah, no
So
worries.
yeah, sorry for last time.
It's cool.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. Okay, yeah, okay, so let's start this. Um, so hi, Clarence. The purpose of this interview is for the software engineering practice class, which studies the organization and function of software teams in the industry,
Mhm.
with an emphasis on the agile development model. Um, so Clarence, you're actually a McGill alumni, and you currently work full time at Yahoo. Can you talk a little bit about how you got there and what path did you take?
All right, awesome. So, cool stuff. So, I'm Clarence, and basically, I've been at Yahoo for about a year and a half now. I was studying computer science and biology when I was at McGill. And so originally what I really wanted to do was I really wanted to study bioinformatics. But after doing some research there, I realized that academia wasn't really for me. And I wanted to give a shot like being in industry for a while. So what I did was I decided to try to go for an internship. Um, and so what I did was I contributed a bit on a few like JavaScript forums. And from there, I was able to get an internship at Yahoo working on one of the open source teams. So I specifically worked on the YUI library back then. And I had a really good time working on that team. So I decided to come back for full time. And after a year, I decided to move on to another team. So today I work on mobile ads. So any ad that you see on one of Yahoo's mobile apps, that's what I work on today.
Oh, awesome. So you have a pretty important position right now.
You make the money. That's what it
Yeah.
is.
Oh, amazing. And your path to get there is actually through open source. So actually they hired you from Skill based
Yeah,
on your
so I worked on a lot of open source projects back then. So yeah, that was one of the main reasons that I really enjoyed the team that I was working on. And that's why they really liked having me on the team too, because I was familiar with a lot of the open source JavaScript community.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. Pretty cool. Um, so what software development process do you use at Yahoo?
So right now we use a little bit. We do have a bit of an agile process. We follow sprints that are about like 2 to 3 weeks. And so during each sprint, we have a specific set of tasks that each pod. So we have 3 different pods on a team: front end, iOS, front end, Android, and our back end teams. And each of those pods has a specific set of tasks that they need to complete.
Oh, okay, awesome. So you must have something like a backlog task, right? Is there a designated Scrum Master which determines which task for each team?
So we don't
And
have a specific Scrum Master per se. So in order to determine which tasks are the most important, which tasks we need to prioritize, our product manager, Helen, and our engineering manager, Jesse, and all of the different pod leaders on our team, they get together and based on what our customers' requirements are, they help to prioritize certain tasks that each of the engineers on the team works on.
oh, okay, awesome. So it's a collaboration between your engineering manager, product manager, and the pod leaders, right? Then,
Exactly.
yeah, then decides a backlog task. Awesome. And who is your customer specifically?
So
Um,
for us, since we're one of the SDK teams, so we don't exactly work on the applications themselves. We provide the ads SDK that each of the mobile applications at Yahoo uses. So our customers are all the internal teams at Yahoo that build out the applications, build out each of the mobile applications. So our customers are all internal teams.
oh, okay, awesome. So your customers are actually other teams at Yahoo, which
Exactly.
uses mobile that produces mobile products.
Exactly.
Okay, that's great. And what determines a priority of a certain project or a certain task? Um, is it the engineering manager and product managers that decide between them?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the PM is the one that usually works with all the other teams, determines like which tasks are the most important. We definitely prioritize like certain teams over others. Like for instance, like Yahoo Mail, which has like the most number of users, those teams will usually have a higher priority for their feature requests compared to other teams.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Okay. Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. So you guys are pretty agile in terms of development. Yeah, sprints of 2 and 3 week or 3 weeks, that's pretty short.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, so I'm gonna ask you, if possible, to describe three examples of stories that you implemented yourself. It would be
Okay.
great to know about one typical implementation, one successful one, and one failure. It would be cool if you can describe this from the beginning to the end, like from the moment your team established the requirements for the story,
Mhm.
and how did you do your research to gather the information you need to build this implementation, and how was the implementation and production at the end? Um,
Okay.
so just three
So
examples that you could remember.
so I can start off with one. So for me, I work on the backend pod of
Yeah.
mobile ads. And what that basically does, we're a middle tier server that basically aggregates a lot of different ad serving systems. So we have a lot of different like ad recommendation systems at Yahoo. People purchase them from different places. Some of them are more like targeted ads. Some of them are programmatically like generated systems. And so we aggregate that all together and basically spit out one set of ads for each group. So one story that we had was one of the mobile apps, specifically the Yahoo homepage app, they want to implement carousel ads. And so what carousel ads are basically, they're the ads that you see inside an app where you can scroll left to right, and when you scroll left to right, you'll see more ads. So that was one of the features that that team requested. Our product manager got that feature request from them, and we started like prioritizing what changes needed to be made. So both on the back end, in terms of what the fact that we would need to like serve more ads for a carousel ad, and also on the front end. So we would also need to implement the carousel scrolling mechanism ourselves. So on the back end side, the first thing we needed to do was we needed to break down the task into multiple parts. For a carousel ad, we need to serve multiple ads in one request, and also we would need to change like a specific configuration setting. So whenever you requested for a carousel configuration, that's when you would return like 10 ads rather than one. We also need to allocate some time for testing, performance testing, and of course the actual implementation of that story. So the first thing we did was we also follow a bit of a TDD sort of process. So we started writing out like what tests we want to have. So whenever you have like a certain configuration, whenever you pass in the configuration setting for carousel, that's when you would get back multiple ads. So we wrote those tests first ahead of time. The second thing we did was we decided like how this would like architecturally work. We had a design review for the architecture of the system. So basically, was the API endpoint that we would have, and what the specific like JSON response would be when you hit that API endpoint. So we designed that out. We wrote out the implementation tests, and then from there we started like coding up the actual implementation. So once we finished that code, we did a little bit of like performance testing. So we ran the system for about 24 to 72 hours to make sure there weren't like any memory leaks or any issues like that. And we also wanted to make sure our latency was under a certain threshold. So once we did that, everything seemed okay. We fixed all of the issues that came up when we tried running our tests again, and the performance was up to par. So then from there, we shipped that out to our CI system, which we have multiple environments for, a development environment, a staging environment, and a production environment. We ran our smoke tests on the staging environment, and then finally from there, we shipped it out to production. So after that, we worked on integrating the actual SDK part with carousel ads with the rest of the team, with the rest of the other teams. So we actually worked directly with the mobile apps teams to make sure that they could integrate our SDK properly.
Oh, awesome. Okay, that seems like a pretty long, tedious process, right? Yeah.
So it's about a 2-sprint process, so about 6 weeks.
Oh, wow, okay. Oh, that's not too long, actually. Yeah. Yeah. So did you have to refer to your customers, like other teams, for opinions during the process of implementing it, or during the research process, or
so they're
yeah.
they're usually involved in the design review once we all agree on like so there's also like a UX review process where how the design of the actual ad looks like is done as well. And so once everyone knows what the API is, so they're familiar with how the API is configured, specifically on like iOS and on Android, once we set out the specific interface for that, that's at most what their involvement is. After we set up the interface, then everything else is just done within the team. As long as everyone has a common interface that they work with, that's all they care about.
Oh, okay. So you actually need to build a certain prototype and let other teams do a UX review before iterating into.
Yeah. So we don't build a physical, like a coded prototype, but it's just like a design.
Oh,
There's a design prototype beforehand.
oh, okay. So you would get feedback from other teams, and then before production, you get fixes done, and so yeah. Oh, okay, awesome. And
But so what happens?
yeah.
Each team has a set of like release dates that they want to hit,
Mhm.
and we promise that we'll get our SDK with this feature,
Yeah.
with this version of our SDK with this specific feature out by a certain date. They test it out for at least like a few weeks before their actual release, before the release of their mobile app.
Mhm.
And then once everything is set there, then they come back to us if there's any like bug fixes that we have to do. Or the QA team also comes and fixes any issue, lets us know about like any issues that they find.
Oh, okay. So there's kind of a beta phase between releasing where everyone gets to try it. Um, and
Yeah,
how?
so there's an integration phase where they integrate it with their actual app before that app gets submitted to the App Store.
Oh, okay. That sounds good. And how about after production? After the SDK has been released, um, did you guys do any maintenance? Like, did the customers find any bugs which you had to, any issues that you guys had to produce as other tasks to fix them?
Yeah, so there's definitely like issues that come up when they start integrating it. They'll find like big memory leaks at certain points when they integrate it with their app that we don't notice because we don't work with their application directly. And also, there's always like weird edge cases. Like for instance, whenever they try to like, we had some like performance issues a while back where if you weren't logged in, the performance would severely like be degraded. And then from there, that's also things that we would need to investigate and fix. So that constantly goes on even after we do a formal release. And then we'll do like patch releases after that in order to fix those issues.
Oh, okay. So there's always a dedicated team that would fix issues after production.
Well, that's still our team. Yeah.
Oh, okay, awesome. And how big was your team to do this implementation?
Our team is currently about 15 people and about 5 people per pod. So for Android, there's 5 people, iOS, there's 5 people, and backend, there's 5 people.
Oh, okay. So it's not too big, not too small. So you guys are pretty agile.
Exactly, yeah. My team is
Awesome.
a former startup, so that's why we
Yeah,
work we work pretty efficiently that way.
mhm, definitely. Uh, so I guess this would be a typical example of implementation where the issues were not too big and the release was successful, right?
Hmm.
Um, do you have any other example of really great success or like big failures where like going into production would be a total failure? Like,
I can go into like a more like bad example.
yeah.
So, or I wouldn't say bad, but an example where we didn't hit our deadlines as efficiently as we wanted to.
Mhm.
So in that case, what our goal was trying to do was we wanted to implement a pipeline, a data pipeline between our ad impressions, so how many times someone saw the ad, and our ad clicks, so how many times someone clicked through the ad, and our ad installs, so how many times someone installed an app from one of our mobile ads.
Oh, okay. Oh,
And we
so it's
want,
some kind of analytics, right?
yeah, so we handle the analytics set up for that too, and that's part of our work. So what we want to do in that case was we want to get all of the data from those ad impressions, those ad clicks, and those app installs. We want to get that all onto our Hadoop cluster. And for that, because this was one of the first times that we were working with the grid, we originally thought it would take like a really short time because what happened was that it would only just be a few weeks in order, basically one sprint, in order to get all of that data onto the grid. But what ended up happening is that it took almost like 4 sprints in order to get the entire thing done.
Oh,
The
wow.
biggest problems that we had for that was that we didn't realize like how much involvement it would take in order to get access to all of the different systems that we needed to. So to get access to the Hadoop grid at Yahoo, there's a lot of like privacy training you have to go through. There's a lot of like grid access that you have to get the permission for, and because of that, that took like a really long time. That took like much longer than we expected. And then we also accidentally like asked for like a few of the wrong systems a few times. So because it was the first time that we were really working with like this giant system, it really wasn't clear. Um, we didn't have a good sense of all of the requirements that we needed at the very beginning and all of the resources that we needed to. So from there, it took us a really long time just to get access to all of the things that we needed to get access to in order to just dump all of our data onto the grid and then do our analysis.
Oh, okay, awesome. So the bottleneck of that implementation is mostly politics within the company, right?
I wouldn't say politics. It's more just like there's a lot of bureaucracy, but the bureaucracy is there for a good reason. It's to protect your users' privacy and to make sure like we're not doing anything crazy that would harm the performance of our systems.
Oh, okay, I see. So
Oh,
you're,
and
yeah.
there was a second thing too that delayed it. We also wanted to try out a new technology called Droid, which is a real-time data analytics platform. But what ended up happening was that that platform ended up not being supported at Yahoo after a while. So we ended up not being able to use that system anymore.
Mhm. Oh, okay. So there was a technical bottleneck as well.
Exactly.
Oh,
So
okay.
because it was a very new and experimental technology that we wanted to give a shot. It seemed like a good fit for our use case at the beginning, and other teams were using it. But it turned out that that other team decided not to use it in the end, and we didn't have anyone else to support the technology except ourselves.
Oh, okay. I
So
see.
we decided to like completely do a 180 on that technology and go back to something that was like battle tested.
I see. Yeah. So would you say that if your pod leaders or a product manager, engineering manager, um, if they did a look more in-depth research before the implementation to know um, how long it would take to go through all the bureaucratics, bureaucratics at Yahoo, would have prevented all this delays
So
and
we do a postmortem at the end of every single like major feature implementation. And yeah, one of the big things that we realized that we needed to do was we needed to realize that in our architecture review, we also needed to talk about like how we would get access to all those systems, how all of those systems like worked, and who were the main owners of those systems.
yeah.
And also in terms of when we were deciding on what technology we want to use, we need to make sure like that technology was well supported within the company.
Oh, okay. Would you say it was because of communication issue, or
It's a
mostly?
lack of research ahead of time. We didn't do enough research in order to make sure that what we were doing was the right choice for our project.
Oh, okay. That sounds good. Yeah, yeah. It's not always evident, especially that your team is relatively new at your company,
Mhm.
I guess. So all the bureaucratics and those stuff, it's maybe a lot of people don't know about them. Okay.
Yeah, we're a smaller team within a very large company with a lot of different internal platforms.
Yeah.
So definitely something that we always need to make sure we're doing the right thing for.
Mhm. But in the future, you definitely know about it, and we'll do more research, I guess, to save you time. And yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So you said that it took you around 3, 4 sprints to finish it. Did you end up successfully deploying and did you attain your goal of producing these analytics?
Yes, we did. So we have that in production today.
Mhm.
The only thing is that yeah, we ended up using a completely different technology than what we initially wanted to use, and it also took us like a much longer time to get it set up.
Oh, okay. So you would say that you attained the same goal. You didn't modify like the story itself, but you just use a different technology, different kind of implementation to attain the same goal, right?
Exactly. So that's what we end up having to do.
Oh, okay, awesome. Okay. Yeah, finally, do you have an example of a complete success of an implementation that you did in your career? Um,
Complete success.
yeah,
Okay.
like um, your best implementation that you ever did. That was. probably ahead of deadline or something that was really well accepted.
Okay, so I guess one thing that really helped with our agile strategy was that one day we had a feature request. So what we also do is we also do a lot of like app store data gathering
Mhm.
on our team. So we get that data so that some of the other teams, we get a lot of like app store data so that other teams can make better recommendations for the different like app store apps that are recommended to you inside of our ads. And so one of the big things that was a success for us was that one day one of the teams decided to ask for feature requests. So a lot of like the rating data that was available on the App Store, and that wasn't something that we were initially like gathering. But we realized that that was like a really like high priority task for them. So we decided to put it as like a huge like as a higher priority during one of our next sprints. Even though we already had like some things planned, it seemed like it was definitely like something that they really want to use to generate app recommendations.
Mhm.
So what we were able to do there was we were able to work really quickly in terms of like scraping that sort of data from the app stores and all of that. And we were able to get it in multiple countries as well. So we got it in all of the countries that they want to get that app information for. And by doing that, we were able to, even though it was like a very like last minute request, we were able to get all of that data immediately. We got our test set up at the very beginning. We knew exactly how the project was supposed to be implemented. And we also were able to scale it out really quickly too. So we were able to get it from just like the US all the way to like the 12 countries that they want to launch in within the first week, out within one sprint. So we had a lot of reasons why that worked out. Was that it was a very like clearly defined goal, what we want to get. We also did our testing like way ahead of time on that, and we also had some already like pre-existing like libraries that we could use to gather that data. So because of that, we were able to deliver that feature out significantly faster than any other like tasks that we had ahead of time.
Oh, okay. So there's a lot of factors that really help you guys get that feature really quickly. And
Yeah, exactly.
mhm.
Because we were able to reuse like some existing libraries that our team already had, we were able to get that feature out like almost immediately. And even though it was also a last minute task, because we had the existing things, we were able to like say like our dev estimates were like a lot less, and so the value of doing this task for the time it took to do it was very high. So we could just get it out, and the value to the company immediately was almost immediate. We were able to get better app recommendations out almost as soon as this feature was released.
Oh wow, that sounds pretty good. And but did you know the existence of these libraries that does exactly what you wanted at the beginning when the requirements were set, or did you discover these tools as you
So
went to implement?
the original libraries didn't do exactly what we wanted them to do, but we realized that we could easily modify them to get that data that we needed. And so by doing that, because we realized that early on, that was one of the reasons that it made this task like so much easier. We realized that we could do this before we started the implementation of the project.
Oh, okay. So you discovered that pretty early in a pretty
Exactly.
early stage. Oh,
Right.
awesome.
So that made it a lot easier for us to plan exactly how long it would take to complete that task.
Mhm. So did you deploy this implementation actually before deadline, or did you just meet the deadline on time?
Yeah, so we got it before the sprint was fully completed, so that gave us a lot more time to work on other stuff.
Oh wow, that's pretty awesome. It doesn't happen often, I guess.
Yeah, not at all.
Okay. Um, yeah, okay, that's pretty awesome. Just a little bit of details. Um, as a team, you guys do a lot of research and then implement um, as a team and then deploy. But on a more individual level, um, how do you partially tackle the task. Let's say you're assigned a task to code a certain part of the project itself.
Mhm.
Do you start by researching in the internet first, for how would you do that, or would you ask internal people to see their opinions first before coding your part of it, like more on an individual scale instead of?
So I'm the pod leader for the App Store gathering. So basically, for anything that we scrape data from the app stores, I'm the pod leader for that. And before we make any like specific before we implement like any feature, there's always like an experimentation phase that we allocate time to during the sprint. And during that experimentation phase, a lot of what we do is not currently done at Yahoo. So what we do is we do have to look online to see like if anyone has done any of the things that we're trying to do so far. And if so, then we try to like implement those techniques too. Once we have a good like prototype of those techniques that we've implemented, that's when we start talking to some of the architects, so that to have a better idea on how to integrate those techniques with the internal platforms over at Yahoo.
Oh,
So it's
okay.
a combination of both. It's both like doing research on the internet for stuff that hasn't been done before at Yahoo whatsoever.
Mhm.
And then after we have an initial prototype done, then we talk with the internal architects on how to best integrate those techniques with Yahoo's internal infrastructure.
Oh, okay. So it's always research then first and then discuss.
Exactly. And research and experimentation is a sprint task for us. So we do allocate specific time for that.
Oh, okay, awesome. And how long does it usually take from research and then discussion and then implementation? Oh,
So research-wise, we usually allocate almost like half a sprint, especially if it's a high priority feature that we might not know whether or not it's possible, but we definitely give at least like half a sprint to like more like experimental type things that might have a huge value if they work out.
oh wow. So, oh, that's a pretty long time. So half a sprint. Oh, that means a week and a half, I guess. Um,
Uh,
to-
yeah, but also we're still doing other stuff in that time. It's half a sprint, including some of like the other stuff that we do.
oh, okay,
But
awesome.
we also do have like to come up with like a formal design document at the end of that like half a sprint
Hmm.
on how to implement it.
So I guess leaving more research would mean it gives you more chance of success in your implementation later on.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay, awesome. And on average, how one feature or one implementation, how many sprints on average, like do you do you finish one feature per sprint usually, or a lot of time it expands or it's shorter?
Sometimes we have a lot of work, like the current sprint,
Mhm.
and in that case, what happens is that we have multiple features that we need to implement per sprint. Certain features are prioritized, certain tasks are P0, P1, P2, and in that case, like the lower the number, the higher the priority.
Oh, I see. Okay. So you implement multiple features at the same time, um,
Exactly.
between inside your pod or
Within our pod, yeah.
oh,
It's
okay.
multiple features inside multiple systems, so sometimes there is a lot of work that we need to do.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Yeah, working in parallel, I guess, is more efficient than working on one feature at once.
So it is a lot of stuff that we have to do sometimes.
Oh, okay. Um, yeah, that's about it, I guess. And so for every feature that you make and you deploy and ship to your client, to your customer, I mean,
Mhm.
um, you need to continuously fix those issues and iterate if it's necessary, right?
Exactly. So the more you do, the more infrastructure we have to support, which also you need to like uh, we do, even though we have a lot of like tasks that we need to do, we also need to make sure that we allocate time for support too.
Mhm. Okay, definitely. So you always keep up with what you built and then keep it alive, I guess.
Exactly.
Did it ever happen that a feature that you or an infrastructure that you implemented gets deprecated that you shut it down later on?
Specifically, on my previous team, we were working on the YUI library, and in the end, over the past year, we actually deprecated the entire library. So we realized that the JavaScript library for YUI was starting to get like very like heavy and very out of date in comparison with the newer JavaScript libraries today. And so after like a lot of work and communication between a lot of different teams, because this was a library that was being used across all of Yahoo, we decided to make the decision to deprecate it and move on to a new library after that. So that was something that, even though it was used, and it was used very well for almost 6 or 7 years, it was a library that we realized needed to change, and we needed to try different things after that.
Oh, okay.
That was an entire platform that was deprecated.
Oh, okay, awesome. Oh, well, a lot of work, and then you deprecate it.
Yeah, that's fine. That's technology.
Yeah, definitely. Did you have to build some kind of replacement to replace that deprecated framework?
So what we do today is we also use a lot of like open source technology, and the replacement for YUI today is Yahoo is mainly using either the React framework by Facebook or the Ember.js framework.
Oh,
So
okay.
we're using a lot more like open source technology rather than building it in-house now.
Yeah, always reuse the wheel. Like, you don't need to rebuild the wheel.
Yeah,
Like,
don't
you use,
re-enhance it. Yep.
yeah. Oh, awesome. Okay. And sorry, I'm just looking for my last question. I can't see it.
No worries.
Yeah. Um, oh, sorry, I'm just making sure that I asked you everything I had to
Yeah.
Japan. So, yeah. Oh yeah, one important thing. Um, in terms of uh, task separation, task assignment by your engineering manager, I suppose. Do you feel like your team actually assigns you the exact amount of work that that fits your schedule, that you can uh, meet the deadlines on time, or do you feel like you get more work than you're supposed to, or less, usually for every engineer in your Scrum team?
We try to improve upon that. Also, my team is our product manager is really strong, and she really helps to buffer out the tasks that we do, and to make sure that we don't like overcommit on anything like that. At the same time, we do have a tendency, especially with some of the newer engineers, we have a tendency to like overpromise on what we can deliver, and uh, sometimes that is a lot more difficult for our team, but thankfully our product manager helps to like buffer that out with the rest of the teams.
Oh, okay. So oftentimes you give a little bit more than you can do, so that you can push everyone to the maximum, I guess.
Not exactly. We don't mean to do that, but
Yeah.
we definitely don't mean to do that. But it turns out that like certain teams have very like heavy deadlines that we sometimes need to really like push forward to.
Oh, okay. And but what happens when if ever the team doesn't meet the deadline to your internal customer? Um,
So if we don't meet the deadline, or if our internal customers,
oh
uh,
yeah, if you don't meet the deadline that you set yourself with the customer, right? Does it delay other teams' work as well?
fortunately, we've been a strong enough team that that has never happened. We haven't ever like missed the deadline that we said we would hit. We said we would hit yet.
Mhm.
But in that case, yeah, it would be like a team, one of our customers would have to push back their own deadlines in that case, and that would be harmful for like the company's revenue.
Oh, okay. Would make a domino effect, but your engineering managers and product manager are pretty good at scheduling, I guess.
Yeah, in that case, they are very strong at that.
Oh, okay. But I guess if ever you're like in a bad situation, um, your team would do some overtime to catch up with the deadline. Yeah.
Yeah, we've had to come in on weekends a few times just to hit a deadline.
Oh wow, you're working hard on that. Do you feel like the agile process you're using at Yahoo is working well? What would you say? Um,
I
is
think
there
it
some,
works well. I think we could definitely be doing better in terms of process. We are going to be trying a few changes over the next few weeks.
yeah.
And in that case, what we're trying to do is we're trying to make sure that we have more stricter schedules so that other teams can't get like, so we can push back on other teams whenever they have like last minute requests. We're trying to make sure like other teams can't give us like last minute requests that make us have more work when we already have a packed schedule. So that's something that we're definitely trying to change.
Oh, okay. Like once you made those backlog tasks, there's no feature that can come in by the customer after that.
We're trying to have like these like strict deadlines for getting your feature request in.
Yeah.
If you get your feature request in before this certain date, then it's not getting in at all.
Oh,
So that's
okay.
all the changes that we're going to have over the next few weeks.
Yeah, that would be better for your team as well. But
Exactly.
that means before you had some situations where suddenly the customer comes in with new features that they want.
Exactly. And so in that case, because everyone always says like their feature request is high priority, and so we need a better way of pushing back against that. So saying that if we need a way to say like if you didn't get your feature request in before like Friday of this date, then sorry, it's gonna miss it.
Oh wow, okay. Yeah, that's much better for you.
Yeah.
Um, is there uh is there something you would personally change if you could in your agile development process right now? Something immediate that you think that can.
I think right now pretty I already have a pretty large say on our process entirely.
Mhm.
One main thing that I'm trying to push for our team lately is we're trying to do more just quality sprints. So sprints where we definitely have like no new features and are just focused on improving the quality of our product. So that's one thing that I've been trying to push lately. So even though we don't get any features done during the sprints, we really need to work on like stability and improving testing and the whole like deployment process. So that's definitely one of the things that I've been trying to push over the past few months.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that would definitely make you more efficient, I guess, if you have more quality sprints.
Hmm.
The result would be better.
Yeah. Except in that case, we also need to make sure that we balance it with all the feature requests that we get.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. And how's the communication inside your team? Do you host stand-ups every day, like in the formal agile development process, or
I have
how do you communicate?
stand-ups that are just basically what did you do during the last 24 hours? What are you doing in the next 24 hours? And
Mhm.
then we also have month uh, half sprint sync-ups where at the halfway point of every sprint, we check in again to make sure everyone is on task.
Oh, okay. So you communicate pretty often, like, yeah, that's a good thing.
Exactly.
And finally, you were talking about limiting the customer's feature request, but how does it happen often that you change your own task during the sprint, or if the task is specified as it is, and then you don't change it at all?
We've canceled some tasks before. We've we've canceled some tasks before when we
Mhm.
realized like that task was no longer important or no longer necessary.
Mhm.
We haven't really like changed the requirements. Sometimes we'll add another requirement if another like restriction comes up, but other than that, for the most part, there aren't that many changes once they're decided.
Oh, okay, awesome. So it's pretty strict. That's good. Okay, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, thank you so much for talking about your software engineering process at Yahoo. It was super interesting, and it seems like Yahoo is a great place to work at. Definitely.
Yeah, when are you coming back?
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
All right.
I'll come back visit you guys. That's for sure. Yeah.
All right. Sounds good.
I'll see. I'll see you by the end of August. Yeah.
All right. Awesome. Cool.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll come visit you in Sarap, and I'll need you to come open the door for me. You know.
All right. All
Yeah.
right. Cool.
I'll,
Here.
oh, awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much again.
Yep. No worries. All right.
Yeah.
Talk to you soon.
Yeah. I owe you one. Yeah. Yeah. First meal is on me when I come back to California. I
Sounds
owe
good.
you this one. Yeah. I'll see you soon then. Thank you so much, Clarence. Have a nice trip back.
Yeah. Will do. See ya.
Yeah. Thank you.